And at one point, she gets so upset that she just decapitates herself. She cuts off her head, and that's the iconography where you see three fountains of blood coming out, which means that her. Because when you do enough of the internal work, whether it's the yantra meditation or the mantra japa, there is a change at the chromosomal level. So effectively, you're altering your DNA, you're erasing a lot of the stuff that you have carried for generations, particularly ancestral trauma. You're able to break that cycle, which has gone on for centuries and centuries. Simply, it's very clear that the divine feminine is just not a consort. It's not just that there is a Devi behind each one of the trinities. It's also that over and above all of them is a presence and energy from which they draw their power, their strength. So, for example, in the Lalita Sahasranama, Ma Lalita is called Pancha Preta Sanasina, was about the Dasha Mahavidyas, right? All are not Mahavidyas. Some are just plain Vidya, some are Mahavidya, and some of them are Paravidya, which means they're transcendent. For you have very limited free will in any case, so utilize it only when it's absolutely essential. So be careful about the choices that you make, the words that you choose, the actions that you put out there. So the
Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. On this show, we have with us today Vinita Rashinkar, who is a returning guest on Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and a podcast. And she is an expert on Shri Vidya, Tantra, and Shri Yantra. We have received a lot of love for her last episode, and I'm going to link that below in case you want to go through it. We have a very warm welcome, Minitaji, on Multidimensional Soul Podcast. Namaste. It's so lovely to have you here, an honor to have you here again on this podcast. Shri Matre Namaha.
Shri Matre Namaha. Thank you, Akanksha ji, for giving me this privilege of appearing on your podcast yet again.
Before we dive into the conversation, we have the invocation.
Om Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashante. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Matre Namaha.
Shri Matre Namaha. Yeah, amazing. Our last podcast received a lot of love. And we had covered Shri Vidya, Shri Yantra, a little bit about Tantra. We had covered little about Shiva Shakti and quantum physics and Shri Vidya. Today, we are going to go deeper into Shri Vidya and we'll understand more about Dasha Mahavidya, Tripura Sundari Mata. I'm excited to talk to you.
Likewise.
So, when we talk about the Divine Mother, because we started our invocation with Shri Matre Nama. So, as we invoke a Divine Mother, can you talk about the role of Divine Mother in
the universe creation. Because so far in our scriptures, everywhere it is so popular that the Trinity is there: Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesha. And Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the operator, and Shiva is the destroyer. And this yoga cycle continues like that with the Trinity. What is the role of Divine Mother in all of this?
Creation is not possible without a mother. So you could have the Trinity, they could stand for the male aspect of fatherhood, perhaps, but it is veritably impossible to bring about any aspect of creation without the mother. And that's where the Divine Mother comes in. And whether you look at the Trinity or look at Ma in an independent fashion, it's very clear that the divine feminine is just not a consort. It's not just that there is a Devi behind each one of the Trinities. It's also that over and above all of them is a presence and energy from which they draw their power, their strength. So, for example, in the Lalita Sahasranama, Ma Lalita is called Pancha Preta Sanasina, which means that her asan, her throne, lies on the corpses of the five main gods
How?
of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Sadashiva, and so on. So, although patriarchy in the Middle Ages has taken away from the importance of the Divine Mother, if you go back and look at any of the texts which are untainted by the patriarchal man gaze, then you will see that the divine feminine is what everything begins with and ends with. So even at the end, when Shiva does the Tandava and all of Pralaya happens, until Shiva exists, there is still something in existence. It is only when Kali devours Shiva that Pralaya is complete. That is why she is called Mahakali. She is the destroyer of time itself.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And Shiva is known as a time. So, yeah, this is something I think lesser known because of, right, as you rightly said, because of the patriarchy, that we always know that consciousness came first, which is Shiva, and the creation came later, the universe, which is Shakti. And what you are saying is that Shakti itself created everything.
See, it's a combination of Shiva and Shakti. You can't have one without the other. Shiva Shakti Ekarupini is what Ma Lalita is described as. So if you look at Ma Lalita as the source, it could apply to any goddess effectively. It means there is, yes, the pure awareness, which is Shiva, and then there is the kinetic energy. And until these two match and meet, creation cannot happen. So much like it's not just that the father figure or the mother figure, it's the union of these two which brings about creation. So there's Prakasha, but what is Prakasha without Vimarsha? Unless there is an awareness of that Prakasha and someone observing it, it's useless. So it's a combination of both, which is supremely important. We should never lose sight of that it's neither the masculine which is more powerful or the feminine which is more potent. Both together make the magic happen.
Yeah, so beautifully explained. And you talked about the observer, which is now science is catching up in quantum physics as the observer effect. And now it is realized that this reality is not reality unless the observer observes. So, yeah.
True. Yes. And this goes back to the time when even in all our tantric texts, even some of our Vedic texts, it is said very clearly that we are not the thinker of our thought. We are merely the awareness behind that thinking. So that is precisely what the observer effect is, because what is awareness but a witness consciousness?
Hmm. When we talk about the scriptures, I would love to know about Dasha Mahavidya, how it originated and how is it carried forward, like passed on from generation to generation. And
Hmm.
why is it Dasha? Means, is there any significance to number 10? Because this Mahavidya means, like, I understand from Sanskrit perspective, it's like great knowledge. So, can you talk about Dasha Mahavidya origins and how it is passed on?
Surely. But first of all, there are 10 wisdom goddesses. Why the number 10? Because each goddess came up to protect a specific direction. So there are 10 directions: four cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, four ordinal directions, that's northeast, southwest, and so on, and then up and down. So that's 10. So if you go back to the origin story, you will see why there were 10 manifestations of Ma Sati, who she placed at these 10 places in these 10 directions. So let's go with the origin. The story begins with Daksha, who is a very powerful king and also a god, and his daughter is Ma Sati. And she is in love with Shiva. Until then, Shiva has been doing penance. He didn't want to come into this world and uh, be a part of this whole Maya. But he falls in love with Sati and he marries her. Now, Daksha is not happy because he sees Shiva as the Adi yogi who's not fit for his daughter. But anyway, the marriage happens, and then Daksha decides to have a yajna, to which he invites everyone except Lord Shiva. So Masati is very angry that her husband has been insulted. She fights with Lord Shiva, saying, I will go for that yajna. And Lord Shiva tries to prevent her from going, at which time she sets up these 10 Vidyas at each of the directions so that Lord Shiva cannot escape and stop her from going for the yajna. Which now reminds me of what the other important point was about the Dasha Mahavidyas, right? All are not Mahavidyas. Some are just plain Vidya, some are Mahavidya, and some of them are Paravidya, which means they're transcendent. For example, Kali Vidya, the study of Ma Kali, is a Mahavidya. The study of, say, Bhuvaneshwari is just a regular Vidya. And the study of Ma Lalita Tripura Sundari is considered Paravidya. That's why it is called Shri Vidya. None of the others have a specific name. It's only Ma Lalita, the study of Ma Lalita, which is called Shri Vidya, because it's a Paravidya, a transcendent knowledge, which doesn't come to all and it doesn't come easily. So now this is the origin story, and then we have the 10 manifestations. So they are not any different from Ma Sati, but they start with Ma Kali, the most ferocious, the most fierce, and they end with Ma Kamalatmika. And this is not hierarchical. It doesn't mean that Ma Kali is more important than Ma Kamalatmika. It's because everything has to have an order. So for that reason, there is an order, but it's not hierarchical. So we start with Ma Kali, then we have Tara, Lalita Tripura Sundari, then we have Bhuvaneshwari, then we have Bagalamukhi, Chinnamasta, then we have Dhumavati, and Matangi, and then finally Kamalatmika. I don't think I've missed out any, but yeah, this is by and large the how the structure of the Dasha Mahavidyas is.
Okay, you talked about Tara. I understand Tara is a Buddhist goddess. So Shri Vidya has roots in Buddhism also?
Buddhism has roots in Tantra.
Okay, other way around.
Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you go back in time, there was a period in the history of Sanatana
Yeah.
where it was only the Vedic path.
Yes.
It was only about the fire sacrifices, the yajnas, which were ordained by the Yajamana, but carried out by the Brahmana. So the common man did not have a way of connecting with the divine.
Mm.
And then along came Buddhism, where there was a direct possibility of connecting with the divine. And at that same time, Tantra also started to grow, where Tantric text said you don't need a middleman. You can connect with the source yourself using tools of Tantra. So there is a lot in common between Tantra and Buddhism. And some of the gods and goddesses are also similar in nature. Tara is one. They also worship Varahi as Vajravarahi. So there are a lot of commonalities, but this arises out of the fact that Buddhism and Tantra came up simultaneously. Perhaps Buddhism drew a lot from Tantra.
Buddhism drew a lot from overall Vedic scriptures.
From Vedas and Tantras.
Yeah, Vedas and
So
Tantra.
we have to differentiate
Yeah,
between Vedic scriptures and Tantric scriptures
Tantric.
here.
Yes.
Because it's a very common mistake that people make when they speak of Vedas and Tantra in the same tone. It's not the same thing. They're two radically different things.
Yeah, beautiful. I have had, personally, I have had beautiful experiences with Goddess Tara. So, how are other goddesses related in this context? Lakshmi, Mata, Saraswati, Durga Ma. How are they related to Dasha Mahavidyas?
They're not related to the Dasha Mahavidyas.
Okay.
Just like you can't find a correlation between the Saptamatrikas and the Dasha Mahavidyas, they're all different stories of different origins, of different narratives which have been built over time. But effectively, these are all that at different points of time in the history of Sanatana, goddesses have been depicted differently. So, whether it's Ma Saraswati, Ma Kali, and Ma Lakshmi, who are the triumvirate, the most powerful, most potent, and then we see them again and again in different manifestations. But the Dasha Mahavidyas is just one particular story which breaks away from all of these aspects. For example, Lakshmi can be found in the Dasha Mahavidyas in her tantric form as Kamalatmika. Saraswati is Matangi, tantric form.
Yeah.
So it's not really far away. It's all there. It's just that their approach, the way they have been depicted, is a little different.
So these are different manifestations which came about and depicted in different times. Can you
Yes.
say that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So you often talk about Shri Vidya as a path for both bhoga and moksha,
Yes.
self-realization as well as self-actualization and embodiment. So can you talk about different situations? How can we apply different parts or different principles of Shri Vidya and Dasha Mahavidya? And you can talk about their relationship first. And how can we apply them in different situations for different purposes in our life?
As women, we see that our role is not merely confined to that of a daughter or a daughter in law or a mother or any of the roles which society puts the label of. Now, all of these Dashamahavidyas, they try to show us the evolution of a woman in different forms. So, if you take a Dhumavati, for example, it is a woman who has lost her husband, she has been widowed, she has been thrown out of her family, she is residing in the cremation ground, she's ugly, she's old, she's a crone. That's how she's described. So, there is a lesson even in that The fact that she has been ostracized from society has made her closer to the source, because now she can get on the path of spirituality if she so desires. Because if you see her iconography, she's shown holding a winnow, which means that she is able to separate the wheat from the chaff. She's able to separate the spiritual from the profane. And she's able to put aside everything that is just everyday activity and then choose the spiritual path, simply because of the fact that she's been thrown out of society. So each of these Dasa Mahavidyas shows us how even the worst adversity can sometimes lead us towards spiritual evolution.
Okay, and how can they apply in different situations? So, for example, in day-to-day life, when we are manifesting something for embodiment, how do different principles of this Vidya can apply?
I can give you one example, that if there is someone who is battling the ego predominantly, where it's very difficult for them to overcome their own sense of self, their own sense of importance in the scheme of things, it is good to do a study of Ma Chinnamasta, because she is the story of how your ego should be cut off in order to serve others, in order for you to become a better evolved spiritual individual. So the story goes that she is with her two friends. They're walking alongside a river, and her two friends are harassing her, saying, "We are hungry, give us something to eat." And at one point, she gets so upset that she just decapitates herself. She cuts off her head, and that's the iconography where you see three fountains of blood coming out. So, two are feeding her two friends, and one is going into her own mouth, which means that her ego is cut off, but it is allowing her to understand that she can therefore have the Sushumna Nadi energized. So, with the cutting of the ego, the Sushumna can become all powerful and find a spiritual path. While the two friends are Ida and Pingala, the Nadis, who are also satisfied. So there is like an underlying story for each of the Devis. It's just that it takes a little time to understand, because the iconography sometimes is so graphic and so macabre that we just leave it at that and we say, okay, this is too much for me. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, today only actually it's so strange synchronicity. Today I came across this uh, cutting the Devi cutting her head, and I was shocked. Like that the entire picture of the three fountains, and now that you explain Ida Pingala and Sushumna, and then how when you have ego death, then the Sushumna rises and meets the
Right.
divine or the Paramatma. Yeah, beautiful.
And also
And
the need to always be selfless. It's not always only about us. There are times when we'll probably have to sacrifice even our lives for the people that we love.
mm,
And it's an acceptable sacrifice simply because it is our ego that does not allow us to sacrifice ourselves.
when we talk about embodiment or self-actualization and applying these principles that we have from Dasha Mahavidya, what is the significance of Sankalpa? Can you talk a little bit about that? And how does it help in manifesting abundance or whatever we desire in this world?
It's not with specific reference to Dasha Mahavidyas, but a Sankalpa is a part of every spiritual act that we undertake in Sanatana. In fact, it's not just in Sanatana, with every religion. Before you undertake something, you try to give something to Mother Earth or to someone. So the Sankalpa in a way is just setting that intention. But in Sanatana, we do it with a Tarpana, right? So even if that ritual is not done, what we are doing is we are setting an intention. And everyone understands by now that once you are clear in your mind about what you want, the universe delivers it much more easily. So when you set an intention, you're clarifying your desire. An intention is different from a goal because a goal is more outcome oriented. When it's outcome oriented, it's almost like you're pushing karma and saying, this is what I want as the phala. But when you do it as nishkama karma, where you're not asking for any phala, but you're just saying, this is my intent, then you're more concerned about the process, the unfolding of the path, which is what setting a sankalpa is all about. So the sankalpa has to be an intention. It just delineates the process of what you're expecting, and it is worded positively and worded in the present tense, almost as if you have already achieved it. So I am peaceful, I am blissful. At the end of the 40 days of this Sankalpa, I find that I am in complete and utter abundance. So that kind of thing. So it's in the present tense, it's positively worded, and almost as if it's already happened.
You talked about Nishkama Karma. And whenever we are living in this world, because the world is designed, this matrix is designed in such a way, this entire Maya Leela is designed in such a way that we do accumulate karma, and there are different types of karmas. We have Sanchita, Prarabdha, and then Kriyaman karma. If we have to move from karmic way to dharmic way, because as a collective, we are moving into unity consciousness and we are moving into higher vibration. So, how do we move from karmic way to dharmic way, and how can we have Dasha Mahavidya or Shri Vidya in particular guide us for that?
The first part of the question is rather easy to answer because it's when Lord Krishna said to Arjuna, Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, which means that you do the action, dharmic action, and do not worry about the result. Now, that itself will not create any further karma. What it means in common language for you and me, if we have to translate it into today's parlance, it means that you just be the witness of whatever is going on the screen of your own life. You have very limited free will in any case. So utilize it only when it's absolutely essential. So be careful about the choices that you make, the words that you choose, the actions that you put out there. So the fewer words you say, the fewer actions you participate in, the lesser will be your karma. The lesser will be the agami karma or the kriyamana karma. So you can reach moksha faster. Now, coming to the second part of the question as to how Shri Vidya or Dasha Mahavidya can help, by themselves, they're merely philosophies, they can't help. The sadhana of Shri Vidya or Dasha Mahavidya is what can help you burn those karmas. Because any sadhana that you do is in one way or another a tapasya. Whether you're doing mantra japa or you're meditating on the yantra or you're doing any mudra work or kundalini shakti work, that is the internal work that you're doing. And that will help you to burn the karmas which you have accumulated over lifetimes and lifetimes, and the bulk of which is not reducing. Now, if you start some kind of sadhana, you will see that there is some amount of burning which is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, so beautifully explained. You talked about choices, and every day we have to make certain choices, and we have to use discernment. And at times, we are naive, as in we don't understand all perspectives or how other people are coming from or what place they are coming from. And everybody is at a different level of consciousness. And
Yes.
there are dark forces, there are manipulative and deceptive and trickster kind of energies that are at
Mm,
play over here. In such a
true.
case, how do we make better choices and how do we use our discernment? So, in short, we may be intelligent, but how can we be wise?
Hmm. Very interesting, because viveka is discernment, is that ability to differentiate between right and wrong, good or evil, or whatever it is that you have to take a decision about. Now, a lot of it also depends on your own previous karma, your own previous experience. So, the way I look at it is that if we make some wrong decisions out of the limited free will that we have, it's because of our previous vasanas, vrittis, and samskaras. They push us in that direction. So, this is the reason why we have to meditate, we have to do the sadhana, so that at least we can erase those previous imprints which compel us to move in the same patterns again and again and again. So, when you bring discernment to the present moment and not just act from a place of survival mode, usually then you have cut that cord with the karma and you have made the right decision. So that is why all of these practices are necessary, because you should not make decisions from your default mode network in your brain. It has to go a little further than that, where you apply your buddhi and not just allow your manas to make the decision.
Right. And how do we discern when there are manipulative or deceptive people?
I think with experience, one just learns that a certain energy is or isn't for us. And intuition is the biggest key. The moment you allow your intuition to take the decision and you don't go by what information you have or what knowledge you have gathered at that point of time, whether it's Google or whether it's anything else, and you just take a decision which sits well with your mind and body, then usually one is not wrong.
You talked about the earlier karmic imprints, that is the vrittis and the vasanas and the sanskaras. And they are very difficult to get rid of because they are the conditioning with which we are born. And they're kind of in our
Yes,
DNA. And many of these come from our other lifetimes, either that or from the lineage patterns, the
true.
ancestral or family or lineage patterns. So, how does Shri Vidya help in changing at the DNA level?
Because when you do enough of the internal work, whether it's the yantra meditation or the mantra japa, what is happening is it's epigenetics at play. There is a change at the chromosomal level. So effectively, you're altering your DNA, you're erasing a lot of the stuff that you have carried for generations, particularly ancestral trauma. You're able to break that cycle, which has gone on for centuries and centuries, simply because you are doing the heavy lifting, you're doing the hard work by way of sadhana.
Yeah. So there is a lot of misconception that karma means whatever you have done, you have to kind of repeat. So if the sadhana is strong, there are ways to overcome that.
First of all, karma is not retribution, karma is not punishment.
Hmm.
Karma only is there to align you with the lesson that you have to learn. So it's not true when people say that if you gave some pain to someone in a previous life, they will give you the same amount of pain in this life. It doesn't work like that. It's
Exactly.
just that karma aligns you and makes you feel that pain. It may be more or less, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be an equal measure. So, this is something that we all have to understand because karma is deeply misunderstood as retribution, as justice. It's not. It is not that. It is here to teach you the lessons so that you align with your true self. You align with what can take you down the spiritual path.
When we talk about epigenetics and changing the imprints and rewiring our DNA itself, what better
Yes.
way than to do it at the prenatal stage? So,
Yes.
what guidance do you have for pregnant women for from Shri Vidya perspective?
We always ask even women who are interested to conceive to start listening to the Lalita Sahasranama. Because there is nothing better than getting the energy of Ma, the mother's energy, even during conception, even during the time in the womb, and even as they grow. Once they're out of the womb, they remember, they recall that Lalita Sahasranama is familiar. They've heard it in the womb. So one of the things I tell all my the people that I guide, especially the ones wanting to become pregnant or currently carrying a baby, is start listening to the Lalita Sahasranama at every given point of time when you have a spare moment, because that energy itself will see you through. Because motherhood is not easy. Motherhood is challenging to the core. And if there's one thing that will help both the mother and the child, it is this.
And do you suggest any meditations or just listening to the chants?
I think for a pregnant woman, already there is so much happening in her life that at this time, they should not embark upon a new journey. If they've been meditating before, it's perfectly fine to continue to do that. But for a variety of reasons, including the fact that sometimes starting a spiritual sadhana can bring about a lot of karmic expediting of the karma. We don't want that for a pregnant woman. We just want her to peacefully, miraculously have a baby and be happy, right? So we don't want that expediting of karma at that point. So it's better not to start anything when you're pregnant, especially in the first trimester. It's just be normal. If you wish, you can always listen to the Lalita Sahasranama or the Vishnu Sahasranama, whatever makes you feel better. That's about it.
Yeah, so true. When people think about spirituality, they just think everything is hunky dory and it's all just bliss and love and light. Lot of, like you said, expediting karma brings a lot of challenges in your life, and everything
Yes,
comes to surface, and it is
correct.
chaotic. And I know what it is to live through that.
Yes.
So yeah, we talk about mother's unconditional love can transform the
Mm.
world. So at the same time, being a mother is not easy. So how
No.
can one embody that energy of mother in this world?
Hmm. So that's a very difficult question simply because being a mother doesn't necessarily mean that we take everything lying down. Even if it is coming from our own children, we know that this is karma, this is runanubandha. There are times when we have to stand up for ourselves as mothers. And that's an important aspect of motherhood. Because if you don't stand up for yourself and you don't fight for what you feel is right, then the subliminal message which is going to the offspring, whether that small children or adult kids, the important thing is for them to know that you have a degree of self worth, which then they can also follow. Because if you don't set that example, and you let them ride roughshod over you, then that's exactly the same cycle that is going to repeat itself in their life. So while it's all very good to say, be the motherly spirit, be benevolent, be loving, all of that, also mark your boundaries clearly. Whoever it is, as a woman, there are certain boundaries that ought not to be transgressed. And the moment you know your self-worth, the world will recognize you for that as well.
Yeah, so true.
Very unpopular opinion. A lot of people will hate me for this, but that's the truth. Because in all the sessions that I do, in all the counseling sessions, in all of the events, one thing does come up. It's that a parent-child relationship is probably the most difficult to traverse karmically. Very painful, often hateful, often deceitful. You can use all of those words. And it's painful for both parties concerned. Each one blames the other. And actually, neither is to blame. Sometimes it's just society and the constraints that one has to grow up with. And it saddens me because that is supposed to be a relationship which one takes for granted. It should be that way, that a child takes a parent for granted, that my mother is there, my father is there for me, come what may. And the same for the parent, that my child is there, my offspring is there to take care of me. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. There are just so many layers and layers and layers, and it's particularly true for the immigrants, because that's a large population that I deal with. And the immigration angst of parent-child relationship is something that is really, really tragic, because the parents feel we have sacrificed so much for the child. The child does not understand why they had to sacrifice, and they're dealing with a whole different set of dynamics which the parents don't comprehend.
Yeah, so true. And then there are generation perspectives, because we are different generations, and that's why this, I think, mm, not, I wouldn't say battle, but this issue continues because there are
Yes.
perspectives which are invariably different.
Yes.
There is so much of loneliness because of all these issues that are happening, and we have nuclear families, and you talked about immigration. We have nuclear families nowadays, and not just that, the kids, the teens, and the young adults are so addicted to social media nowadays. If we want to invoke the Divine Mother so that we don't feel lonely, even if physically we are feeling lonely, but we
Yes.
want that Divine Mother's presence within our life so that we feel loved. How do we do that?
Uh, it's just that you're not any different from the source. If you look at Advaita itself, it is very clear that it is not Paramatma versus Jivatma. Eventually, we are but a part of that Paramatma. So, how about if we accept that we are already whole and we don't even think of ourselves as lonely? Think that, yes, I am alone, because lonely actually is a very negative word. If you look at alone, if you look at solitude, it's a positive word. Unless you feel the need for someone, you could be completely alone and be happy with yourself. On the spiritual path, aloneness is everything,
So
because it's only when you're alone that you don't have to wear a mask. Even if it is your loved one, it's your spouse, it's your child, it's your parent, you still have to wear a mask when you're with another person. You can't let that down. But when you're alone is when you can actually just be who you are, your authentic self. So loneliness, of course, is just a state of, it's a state of mind. Being alone is a state of being. So that's something we have to differentiate between. And for me, I think that once you connect with the source, whether it be Ma Lalita or Hanuman or Lord Shiva, whoever it may be. Once you make that connection, you stop being lonely because you realize you're a part of something much bigger. Loneliness, in a way, is also very egoistic. It's all about you. What can others bring to me? Why I need others in my life? How I can utilize this social activity for my benefit? Whereas if you're alone, you don't need any of these things. You're complete in yourself. So there has to be a little change in the narrative about how one ought not to feel lonely, and one has to embrace the aloneness with presence,
Yeah,
just being present in the moment.
yeah, true. And I can understand it, and I know it, but it is something that I think we need to educate the younger generation, especially the teens and the Gen Zs, as such, because the loneliness that I'm talking about is seen more in the younger generation.
I don't think that is a loneliness, that is a sense of disconnectedness, because they feel all the time they are on their phones or on their video games and all of that. There's a disconnection from real life. That is not necessarily loneliness. It doesn't come out of the feeling that there is no one for me or that I don't belong anywhere. It's just that at that temporary period of time, they're feeling the loss of connection with everyone around them. I'm not unduly concerned for them because eventually they will come around and their brains are still developing, and eventually it'll be okay when they understand that perhaps they will find partners, they will find friends again, and all of that. My concern is more for the older people, the 50 pluses like me and all of us who feel somehow that now, okay, what's left? We've done our duties and now we are feeling lonely because nobody's there to share our stories with. I think that's the bigger point of concern for me.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, spiritual practices is something that we all need to be educated on and start right from the childhood. And earlier, there were these 4 stages in life, and there was Vanaprastha
Hmm.
when after you finish all your duties, then you go and meditate. But now people are not aware so much, and they're not even inclined. They're so much still attached, that why are
Yes.
my children not calling me, or why is this thing not happening? And because of these expectations and attachments, then that is where the whole dynamics kind of brings problems.
I totally agree. The children are not calling you because they have a life to lead. Please remember that. And you should be happy that they have a life to lead. Imagine a scenario where a child has no life other than just depending on you the whole time. That's a very tragic life for both the parent and the child. So every time you should be grateful that the child has a very busy life, he has a family, he has his own social circles, and but he's still caring for you. It's not that the care goes away. This is something that, again, it's about being in the present moment and not being dependent on anyone for anything.
Connect with the source and depend on God. Vinita Rashinkar is a spiritual healer, writer, speaker, wellness expert. She is the founding director of Shri Chakrayantra Foundation. It's a non-profit organization, and she is a best-selling author of many books. She is the author of books like Esoteric Wisdom of Lalita Sahasranama, Cosmic Symphony, Dasha Mahavidya, and today we are going to discuss a bit about Dasha Mahavidya. She's also the author of The Sacred Sounds of Shri Vidya and Chakras, Shri Chakrayantra, And her recent book is Tantra, Mantra, and Yantra of Shri Vidya. Her details, if you want to connect with her, are provided in the video description. Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.